welcome to your Asian Pulse TV. I'm your host Manbir Randhawa, and today we are broadcasting from the unceded territories of traditional Silvertooth Nation, Mokim, and Kwantlen nations. We feel very blessed for the generosity of the First Nation people who let us share this land with them. March is considered as the onset of spring in Canada, and especially in our beautiful province, British Columbia. Daylight saving time has begun since March 12th, and now the days will be longer. Soon the sunset will happen until 9 p.m. But this also marks as a 2-week vacation time for kids from school. The 2 week of school vacation between March 11th and 26th also marks the end of winter and the start of longer, brighter summer vacation. Parents will be having hard time with the kids at home, but we have shortlisted few activities for you that you can enjoy with your kids, and most of them are free. For example, Harbor Air that flies from Vancouver to Victoria and Sea to Sky Gondola is having kids free tickets. So as long as adults buy the ticket, the kids can go free. Mount Seymour Tubing is having price deduction, so you can take your kids there. Fort Langley National Historic Site has a ticket for less than $10 for kids, which is a good activity for kids during the day and learn about Canada history. Science World Cultus Lake Adventure Park. These are the cheap options, and the latest one is in the Brentwood Mall called Marvel Avengers Station. Britannia Mine Museum, which is just 40 minutes drive from Surrey, is also a good destination. Let's take a short break and hear some words from our sponsors.
I understand how important it is to have a place called home, and it's frustrating using your hard-earned money on rent. Vic Prasad can make you a homeowner. Get pre-approved services provided to first-time buyers and new immigrants. You can qualify for mortgage even if you have bad credit. Call Vic Prasad now on 604-306-6647. Vic Prasad is associated with Craft Mortgages Canada Incorporated.
For any kind of visa-related services, contact Milky Way Immigration, a galaxy of opportunities located at Unit 209-9547 152 Street, Surrey, BC. They have licensed immigration consultants, placement officers, and LMIA experts to meet your immigration and recruitment needs. Book one-time free consultation either on Facebook or by calling 604-396-0005.
Arvind's Curry and Cocktail, Indian cuisine. They do catering for all occasions and they do free delivery. Please call 604-515-1070. Address is 420 6th Street, New Westminster. Open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. For deliveries, call 604-515-1070 or arvindscurry.com.
Bollywood Banquet Hall and Conference Center, located at Pile Business Center at 201-8166 128th Street in Surrey. No celebration is too small to accommodate you. They have newly renovated 2 halls to serve you, up to 1,000 guest capacity, top-notch chefs to delight you with delectable and heavenly cuisine. So just call Bollywood Banquet Hall at 604-598-2700 for your events. Benisi Mobile Detailing Services. They offer commercial trucks, cars, SUV, boats, bikes, RVs, and much more. Just give them a call at 778-808-2859. Just give them a call at 778-808-2859 and they will do all kind of services at your home. Thank you, sponsors. With great sadness, we have to announce passing away of Mr. K.S. Naikar. Late Mr. K.S. Naikar was Bobby Naikar's dad and an honorary consulate of Fiji in Vancouver. Mr. Naikar was a prominent figure in the Fijian community. He arrived in Canada in the late 1960s when the first migration from Fijians were coming to Canada. He was the first person from Fiji who was invited by late Queen Elizabeth to Buckingham Palace and was awarded the Silver Jubilee Medal for his work as a Scout Commissioner in Fiji. He was very active in Fiji-Canada Association for many years, as well as other Fijian organizations. He left behind his 1 son and a daughter with 4 grandkids. Funeral services will be at Forest Lawn Funeral Home on Royal Oak at Burnaby, 9 a.m. on March 16th. On behalf of all of us at Asian Pulse TV, we send our heartfelt condolences for the family and friends. May the departed soul rest in peace. Today in our studio, we have Dimple Saran and Annie Ohana, who will be talking about Anti-Racism Day marked on March 21st.
Hello and welcome to Asian Pulse. And today's show, we're going to be highlighting on Anti-Racism Day. Anti-Racism Day is coming on March 21st. It's an international day. And this day is also United Nations Declaration. But we're going to go and talk about that day a little bit later on because we are holding an event, all three of us. But today we are sitting in here to talk about why in 21st century we're still talking about Anti-Racism Day, and why is it important that all of us, we need to participate, we need to educate ourselves, it cannot brush it down under the rug. And I will pass on to Annie, and Annie is an activist, a high school teacher, and she founded an organization called Justice Mustang.
Mustang for Justice.
Mustang for for Justice, I think.
Sure, no worries.
And Dimple Saran, and she is a healthcare worker and founder of One Voice Canada and ran in many elections. So both these women are no stranger to you. You have seen them around and you have seen them on the show. So today we're going to talk about March 21st. So Annie, I want you to take over.
Yes. I think, more about why are we talking about this, right? And I think the recent Human Rights Commissioner report that came out in BC just a couple of days ago makes it clear that we are really reaching kind of new highs in terms of hate crimes and hate speech and racism, right? I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of reasons, but racist actions. And I think what was most alarming, unfortunately, is not just the spike, whether it's Asian hate, Islamophobia, LGBTQ, like the list goes on and on. The reality is that the report makes it very clear that we don't have the structures to deal with this racism. Reporting mechanisms at multiple levels don't work very well. And so when people face these microaggressions or attacks or whatever they might be, they don't really know where to go. They don't know how to deal with it. And so this path continues, right? So I always say, if you have the feeling of but I don't face it, then you are very privileged, right? Maybe you are white passing. Maybe there's a lot of reasons why maybe you can't see that happening to you, or that you don't see the system as what it's doing. But for many people, I mean, it's pretty clear that most BCers, especially BIPOC community, especially people in marginalized communities, are facing increased levels of that hate, of that racism. So I think the statistics are there. I think across the board, we can agree that we have massive issues, from our homes to our schools, to our workplaces, to the way that the government acts towards people. Unfortunately, we need to change a lot of things in BC to actually correctly and adequately address the racism that people are feeling.
And when you talk about racism and the numbers that are given, that the spike is it's gone up about 700% for Asian hate and other races hate. But this is probably the ones that are very small number that get reported to somewhere, right?
Exactly.
And there's so many times we internalize that. We don't talk about that. We think it's just very personal. It's just me. I'm looking at that way. So I just want Dimple to add on to whatever you think is why you think this is on the rise. And
well, I mean, if we look at certain scenarios, right? Like look at through COVID, people blaming Asians, right?
Yes.
And that's where a lot of the spike came up. I mean, there were seniors in downtown Vancouver being attacked who had nothing to do with anything, to be honest. But why are we doing this? What is it that fear that we have internally, creating this racism borderline underneath, that we don't recognize that why are we behaving the way we are? We really need to self-reflect. And I think that has a lot to do with, again, preventative measures, education at the municipal, at the provincial, at the federal level, especially with a country like Canada where we have a lot of migration going on.
But do you know where is this coming from? Where does it start?
Yeah, I think there are several reasons for it, right? I think number one, and this is from many incredible, especially women, Black women, Indigenous women, people of color, that have said, like, we're all prejudiced. You know, we all have this inside of us, right? And so to say I'm not racist is not good enough. Angela Davis says it's not enough to be not racist, you have to be anti-racist. So like the way you lead your life, right? So very importantly, first of all, we all have prejudices that form over time. Could be based on money, could be based on life experience, could be based on a lot of different reasons of why we see the world the way we do, right? And I think Dimple made a great point, Upinder, the reality of scapegoating, right? So this idea of the blame game. And I put this on politicians, I put this on people, I put this everywhere. This idea that when you have a problem, you blame somebody else. And especially, the emperor, has no clothes, right? It's like they don't know how to solve the problem. So instead of actually going through the hard time of whatever it, needs to be done, for example, the housing market, there might need to be some pretty aggressive tactics, but instead I'm just going to blame Asian people, right? Just like COVID, right? We can't, we have to shut down the economy, but let's blame the Asian people because, somehow that's connected, right? And there's so many examples of this. Indigenous people being blamed for how come we can't build pipelines, like as if they're to blame for the climate, emergency, right? You have so many examples of this, and governments have done this for a very long time, and it has led to genocide, to apartheid. They continue to do it. And so scapegoating, and we do this in our own lives. So I think to me, it's, you want to have that dialogue of like, why do you feel this way? Why would you call someone that name? Why would you think, Black people are this, or a person of color is this, right? Why do you fear other people? Because it's rarely founded. It's rarely on any truth, right? It's all lies. It's all irrational, right? But it's out there, right? Jews control the world. Like there's all these different stereotypes that control us, that condition us to act this way. So I always think like, what is going on with this person, and why do they think that this problem, they lost their job or they can't get into a school? Why do they blame someone they've never met? A culture they might know nothing about. They blame that on that? Who set that up? Right? Because that's a system, right? That's not just, you didn't just make that up, right? And especially if you see it in books, if you see it in the media, if you see it in schools, it's going to perpetuate, right? It's something that's going to continue on. So I think to me, it's not about guilt. It's not about you're a bad person, right? It's more about there are reasons why we think the way we think, and we need to ask questions, and questions that allow us to maybe admit that we can do better, that we can do better by other people, right? That's all it means, right?
Yeah. And like, I'll just add on to that. Like, when people sometimes ask, where does racism root from? Well, I personally, this is my personal opinion, I don't know how others feel, but I don't think anybody's born racist, right? And so at the end of the day, it's the environment we are surrounded by. And we all know environments make a huge difference, right? The house you're growing up in, the children you're around, the adults you're around. Children learn from adults. So if they see certain behaviors, visually people pick up much more than they do, by listening to somebody. And so at the end of the day, it's our surroundings around us. And so in order to create a less racist environment, we have to all work together as community, as government, as, people publicly, openly in different programs, events. We have to create these dialogues and educate people. And education is where the key, I think, lies. Because at the end of the day, the awareness is there. People know there's racism in Canada. I mean, as much as we'd like to brush it under the carpet, right? It's very open, and it's public at times. Like even in the Parliament, we sometimes see people speaking racist comments themselves. And so it matters that, as individuals, where are we stemming from and internalizing, like you said, Camilla, internally, how are we self-reflecting? How are we asking ourselves questions about what makes me racist? What brings on that prejudice within me? And why do I have these underlying feelings, right?
And I think I have to add on one more thing, and we need to listen to those that face that racism. And Melanie Mark, the first Indigenous MLA in BC, resigned and had some really poignant, powerful, aggressive words about what she faced in our own legislature in Victoria, the systemic racism, right? The white supremacy, the misogyny she faced, right? Because she's a strong woman. She's a strong Indigenous woman, right? And so I think we have to realize that this idea of race is constructed, right? And white race is always on top, and our systems are based on that. If we don't acknowledge that, we can't. We need truth to actually get to justice. A lot of Indigenous people say you need truth and reconciliation. You cannot reconcile without the truth. So we have to acknowledge that this entire idea of race is problematic. Because we are one race.
Yeah.
Literally, scientifically, we are one race. But we've constructed, white race has been constructed to take away the human rights of others. And we see that right now in 2023. This is not the 1960s, the residential schools. Like, it's right now, right? And while hopefully things are getting better, the report that was just released suggests that we still have a very long way to go.
Yes, very long way. And I think, again, it stems on what is that? What is the community feeling? What is the individual feeling? How are we as, members of this community working? What do we see that brings on that fear or brings on the sort of emotions that we have, right? We see outbursts at SkyTrain stations. We see outbursts in community. And then we see underlying systemic racism. And I think that bothers me more than the actual outburst, because the outburst, the person's now released their emotion. You tend to see where, that they are actually feeling a certain way. But with systemic racism, how do you tackle that? I think that is our biggest problem in this country right now, is that systemic racism lies, and it's there, and it's subtle, and it doesn't, you may not be able to prove that there's something racist going on here when realistically it is. And we see that, just like how you said, like, with in Parliament, we've noticed that even politicians feel a certain way, and so if it's happening at such a high federal level or provincial level, then obviously it's happening at municipal and community levels, and internally at schools and other places that we work and play. And so we need to really step back and as a community analyze, how can we make our communities better? How can we create better environments? How can we create less toxicity with this racism that is flowing throughout Canada? And racism is not new, as Annie mentioned. It's been going on for centuries. And we saw what First Nations have gone through. We also know that this racism, particular Racism Day on March 21st, is because of Black history. And so, there's many, even within our own communities, we notice that within our own communities, South Asians have their own internal racism. Europeans have their own internal racism going on, even amongst their own communities. What is bringing this on that we have to sort of still today, in today's date, have conversations around this? And so I think it's very important that we continue these conversations, because obviously it's something that needs to be prevented and educated on.
5 seconds more on this. Act out of joy, not out of hate. So an example with COVID. Which society used masking regularly to stop the spread of infection? The Asian community, right? In Richmond, I remember growing up, people were masking, you didn't quite understand why.
And you feel safe there.
And then you felt safe, right? And all of a sudden, that's what we were all doing.
Yeah.
But isn't it weird that at the same time, we blame that same community? So when, are you celebrating different cultures? Are you looking at the good? Even if you're going through a very tough time, there's always going to be that joy, that love that you can see for others. And believe me, it's going to allow you to find the solutions much faster. Because at the end of the day, if you know that masking came to us from these same communities, then you can really start to question, well, how come we shut down so late? How come that the Canadian government knew that this virus was spreading around the world and didn't take action as quickly? Or that our vaccines were delayed compared to other countries? Those are the questions to ask. Those are legitimate questions. Not, oh my God, it's Asians. Right?
Yes.
Which is so full of political, the politicians were doing that for a reason, right? We have to be careful here about, what countries they pick, there's a reason behind that. So, but I often think that medical, but wait a minute, but we were masking and that came from the Asian community. So they should be celebrated. They should be elevated during COVID because viruses will come from anywhere. We don't control nature, right? And we shouldn't think we do. So, China unfortunately happened to kind of be the point of origin, we think. That doesn't mean that Chinese people are to blame for what is a naturally occurring virus.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about prejudices. We all have prejudices. Racism and prejudices. Well, they say, I am not racist. People will say, oh, My goodness, well, I am not racist.
Yeah.
But we are prejudiced.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think we don't talk enough about that.
Yeah. I can give a very, because I teach this in my classes. Isms or IST, ISM, IST are connected to systems.
Yeah.
So when you say racist, sexist, classist, whatever, you're talking about the structure.
Yeah.
Not everybody has access to that structure.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
But prejudice, we all have it.
Yeah.
So could you have two South Asian people calling each other names and acting like what you think is racist? Yes, but it's prejudice.
Yes.
But they can't necessarily pass a law
Yeah.
that bans the other person from wearing their
Because
turban or
they
losing
don't
their
have
job.
that kind of power.
They
in
don't have the
society.
kind of power.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to understand. And that's why, yes, white, straight men, we tend to say they have the most power, and so it's coming through them. but when people go, oh, I can't be racist, I'm brown, I've heard that. I'm like, well, but we all have prejudice. Because we have to realize that, look, we have so many people of color in our members of parliament, and it's becoming more and more. But it doesn't mean that there can't be lateral violence. It doesn't mean that we are conditioned to act in certain ways. So I think when people just go, well, no, I'm not racist, and they push it aside, it's like saying, I've never raped a woman. Well, good for you. I hope you don't, right? If that's where we start, we have a problem, right? But, how you treat women, right? How you treat the other person is maybe more important, right? And so I think that's a very powerful way so that people don't just think, well, you just hate white people. You just do that. That's why you're talking about this. Yeah. No, it's not, right? We are all prejudiced. We all have to find ways. And again, celebration. Joy. To say I'm not racist and then to live in your little bubble does not make you any less prejudiced.
Yes.
You're still not willing to interact and dialogue with other people about the way they feel. I tell my students, when someone tells you that's racist, they tell me an experience that they're feeling, they might not have the right words, but you need to acknowledge that and go, okay, so how did I say what, and think about it. What did I say that caused you? Impact is important. You think it was a joke? You think you didn't mean it? You think it was just whatever, everybody says this? Well, it's not, right? So your ability to build that bridge and to go, okay, you know what? I need to take a step back and just say, okay, I apologize. What I said hurt you. How do I make this better?
Yeah.
Why is that a problem?
It's not a
Because if you can't deal with that, then you are racist, right? Then that's when you cross over to that systems reality.
I want to talk about our event is on March 21st at City Square, City Center Library in Surrey. And it starts at 5 until 7:30 p.m. And we will start on time. And that is the reason why we are discussing this, because March 21st is International Day. So come on board.
Yeah, come on down. Dialogue has to happen between everybody.
Yeah.
So youth, families, seniors, people in positions of power, right?
Yes.
All kinds of people. It would be nice to have a nice cross section, right?
Yeah.
So we can actually listen to each other's experiences and hear from individuals that can provide us maybe with some steps and what actions to take. But if we don't talk about it, it just continues and it's the norm.
Yeah.
Racism is just normal. And I think, that the report is very damning. I think, unfortunately, that racism and hate crimes seems to be the norm.
Yeah. 100%, and I hope everybody is able to make it because it's a public event. It's open to everyone, youth all the way to seniors, and the speakers obviously are experts in their area because they've been working in the field for a long time, and so you'll get to learn, grow, and develop as a community as a whole.
And ask questions.
That's right.
But be on time. We're going to start on time. And there are going to be a lot of people there. We want to see you there. So as a free event too. And there are going to be some light refreshments going to be served as well. Thank you both for coming in.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Dimple and Annie. The United Nations declared March 21st as an International Day for the elimination of all forms of racial discrimination. Asian Pulse TV, Shakti Society, One Voice Canada, and Justice Mustang are teaming up together to observe the day at Surrey Central Library on March 21st from 5 until 7:30 p.m. The evening will have a keynote speaker, panel guest, Indigenous openings, and light refreshments. Those of you who are attending, we request you to be there on time. The event will follow strict timelines. For more information, please call 604-537-5123 or 604-218-3976. I'm sure all of our Muslim friends must be gearing up for Ramadan. A fundraising dinner to help tackle food insecurities across Canada is being organized on March 8th at 6 p.m. at the Tharch Park Convention Center in Surrey. Keynote speaker will be Imam Hamid Salimi, and there will be many other speakers plus silent auction. For tickets and more information, call Hina 778-838-7126. An open mic is a live show at a venue such as coffee house, nightclub, coffee club, pub, and it usually takes place at night, in which audience members may perform on stage, whether they are amateurs or professionals or even for the first time. Showman Events Entertainment and Production House host these free open mics, and the next one is March 14th at the Momo Factory in Delta. For further information, you can call 604-790-9077. One of our friends from Asian Pulse TV is in dire need of kidney donation. We all have 2 kidneys, and if you would like to consider yourself as a donation person, you can contact us and we will be able to help you. This person has worked in the healthcare industry for past 35 years, and we are trying our best to help with a kidney placement. If you are from Fiji community and you have had kidney transplant experience done in the past, you can be one of the ambassadors for this organization. You can contact us and we will forward your information to the Kidney Foundation. Call 604-537-5123. If you have missed our show today, you can watch it again tomorrow night at 8:30 and again on Saturday at 5:30 p.m. on Shaw Cable. All of our shows are also uploaded on YouTube channel. Just as before, I would like to remind you that we have 3 shows under the Asian Pulse team. The first one is Fiji in Focus, which you can watch on Tuesday at 10 p.m., Thursday at 2:30 p.m. and Sundays at 4 p.m. Second is Kamila Singh's show, which you can watch on Mondays at 10 a.m. and again on Sundays at 5:30 p.m. Weethy Vibes TV on Thursday at 10 p.m. and again on Sundays at 4:30 p.m. All of our videos are also available online. Just go to YouTube channel. Before I sign off today, I want to leave you with these thoughts. Focus on the step in front of you, not the whole staircase. With that, I'm your host Manbir Randhawa, and I will see you next week.